Sometimes we want to spend all day simmering the perfect spaghetti sauce, but sometimes we want to make a delicious spaghetti and meatball dinner with minimal effort in under 30 minutes. Welcome to The Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today's recipe is super easy, minimal effort, and absolutely delicious, and it's from scratch. So we are making this from scratch. It's gonna be done in under 30 minutes. I'm gonna use the Ninja Combi to get that done using the Combi Meals function, okay? So let's get right into it. In your inner pan, which is the Combi pan, you're gonna put 3 cups of beef broth or stock, either one's fine. Then we're gonna use 8 ounces of spaghetti noodles. Now, one thing I'm gonna say before I keep going and layering, have your ingredients ready to go. You don't want your spaghetti noodles soaking in this broth for any length of time. This is a build it and cook it immediately kind of dish. And I'm using 8 ounces, which is a half of a pound box. Don't need to measure, just grab out, a couple handfuls. And the way you put them in the Combi pan does make a little bit of difference, okay? If you just put them all across like this, they're gonna clump a little bit. So in order to avoid that, we're gonna fan them out. So put a thin layer that way, a thin layer this way. So I'm crisscrossing them. It's just allowing them to cook more evenly. Just like that. All right, some of them are gonna be above the beef broth. Don't worry about that and don't be tempted to add in more or you're gonna have a soupy spaghetti, okay? The next thing that's gonna go in is the fire roasted tomatoes, or you could use just plain diced tomatoes. This is a 14.5 ounce can. Now, when you pour these on, the juices from the tomatoes are gonna go down into the Combi pan, but keep the tomatoes up on top a little bit, okay? The next thing we're gonna put in is our seasoning blend. All right, so mix it up well, and then just sprinkle it over the top here. I try to broadcast it over the entire pan. So when you go to mix your spaghetti and meatballs at the very end, it's kind of already dispersed a little bit. All right, next thing that goes in is a can of crushed tomatoes. This is 15 ounces, and I pour it on top. It does go down into the liquid, but it is okay. Just spread it out a little bit. Let it sit on top of those fire roasted tomatoes or diced tomatoes, okay? And then the last thing that goes in before we add our meatballs, 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. This is what's gonna thicken everything up, so it is important. And it's also important that it goes on top so that it doesn't settle down to the bottom and cause a little bit of burning on the bottom, which will cause some problems with your pasta. All right, now, how you set this up is gonna be a little bit different depending on what you have at home. For me, I have this rack that sits in here nicely. So I just put that in. It raises it to just about the level of the pan. And then I have a rack here that sits on top. The reason why I'm doing it this way, because people are gonna say, just put the meatballs on here. They don't all fit, right? So I had to come up with this. And this is too small to kind of fit in on top. The rack that comes with your Ninja Combi is not gonna work. It goes down too much. It's gonna compress all of your spaghetti ingredients, so it's not gonna work. Let me talk real quick about the meatballs because look, you can make these up in 5 minutes. Follow my air fryer meatball recipe. You mix up the ingredients and you roll out the meatballs. Literally, it takes 5 minutes. So make homemade meatballs for this. You're going to love it. All right, now we get it into the Combi. To set up the Combi, you're gonna go to the Combi cooker, turn it on. We're gonna be on Combi Meals at 375 degrees and hit start. Take your time to 12 minutes. Okay, it's gonna take about 9 minutes or so for the steam to start to build. So that's cook time too, okay? So the 12 minutes is all we need. It's just lovely. What about the garlic bread, right? We're gonna do that at the very end because after the spaghetti's done cooking, we're gonna toss it around with the meatballs, then we're gonna let it sit in the combi. It's gonna stay warm, and we're gonna air fry our garlic bread. So it took just about 10 minutes for the countdown to switch over, the 10 minutes of steam time, which is preheat, but it also cooks. Now we've got a lot of steam coming out. You can see a lot of steam built here, but within 2 minutes, that's all gonna clear up, and we're gonna go into the dry heat cooking mode. So you really can't see anything yet, but as soon as it clears up, I'll show you the inside, okay? All right, so we have no more steam, and you can see that the meatballs are cooking and browning up nicely. So we'll just let the time run out, and then we will put the meatballs into the spaghetti. All done. So the first thing I like to do once I get the door open is just go ahead and temp the meatballs, just in case you made them a little bit bigger, or maybe yours were partially frozen or something. You wanna make sure they get up to at least 165 degrees. So let's go ahead and put this in, and mine are at almost 200, so they are done. But they are not gonna be dry, so don't worry about that at all. Okay, now, get some heat protection on your hands, and then pull out the combi pan. Oh my gosh, those meatballs look gorgeous. Look at that. They are just gorgeous. Wow, so nice looking. All right, now we're gonna get actually I'm still gonna need this. Now, actually for you guys, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this over to the rack here. I'm gonna squeeze one of my meatballs. Oh well, okay. It's just so I can show you what this looks like inside, okay? I'll move that over there. So we have a lot of liquid in here. That is normal. Do not worry about it. It's gonna thicken as it sits in there when we go to air fry the garlic bread, okay? So now you wanna just sort of move everything around. And the noodles, the pasta, is al dente. It is absolutely a gorgeous spaghetti with no fuss, okay? Minimal effort. Of course, you know I love the roasted garlic, and I love onions and even green peppers sometimes in spaghetti, but sometimes you just need something that you can put together really quickly, and that is this recipe. All right, let's get these back on. I'm gonna squish that same meatball again, but we're still gonna put him right in here. A little sticking, but not too much. Now, if you wanted to prevent the juices from the meatballs getting into your spaghetti, I know some people have an issue with that. I do not, because it just adds flavor to the spaghetti. But if you do, you could put a little bit of parchment or even a little bit of aluminum foil on your rack if you wanted to. All right. Now, move it all around. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I'll have these instructions on the written recipe on my website, is you can increase this to 12 ounces of pasta and just make a few adjustments in the amount of liquid that you use, and it works out fine. I did that last night. You cannot necessarily double this recipe in this pan. It just gets too full, and what's gonna happen if you try to double it, it's gonna overflow and you're gonna make a mess in your combi. If you have the larger Dutch oven, you can double the recipe, and again, you would need to make some adjustments so that you have enough thin liquid so that it all cooks up nicely. One thing I really liked about this is that the noodles do not taste starchy, okay? Sometimes when you make pasta dishes and they're cooking in a broth, they can kind of taste a little bit starchy. This does not at all. It's really lovely. I absolutely love it. Now let's get this back in. It's already thickening up, but we're gonna get it right back in again to the combi. Same level, level 1. And then we're gonna take our garlic bread. Now, this is my homemade Italian bread. I absolutely love making bread. I don't know if you're gonna take the time to make your own bread, but you can get a loaf of Italian bread, slice it in half lengthwise, and then put on butter that's got some garlic and onion and basil and you know, any type of Italian seasonings you like, and then a little bit of green parsley, which I use dried because it's easy. And it looks beautiful, and it's homemade, and oh, it's just so wonderful. One thing I will mention is don't butter the bread and then put your seasonings on top. Mix the butter and the seasonings together and then spread it on, because we're going on air fry. And if you just sprinkle on the light seasonings, they blow all over the place. Now, ask me how I know. I know this because that's what I did last night, because I made this last night for our dinner. All right, close this up. Now we're gonna take this over to the dry heat, which is the air fry side. And we're gonna stick to air fry, which is the first choice here. We're gonna go to 375, same temperature, and it takes about 5 minutes. But I usually put about 8 on the clock. And it browns this bread nicely. That keeps your spaghetti warm, and it also gives it the time to thicken up. All right, let's take a peek and see how our garlic bread is looking. Oh yes, that looks gorgeous. Look at that. Oh my gosh. It's hot too. Oh my gosh, that feels so good. But it's burning my hands. But it feels nice and crunchy on the outside. Oh my gosh. This looks great. Okay, now let's pull out the spaghetti and meatballs. Yep, that thickened up beautifully. That looks great. Oh my gosh. All right, I'm gonna slide this over here. Go ahead and put this back in, and then I'll close up the combi. Its work has been done. Of course, I got spaghetti sauce on my glove. I have to wash these almost every single day. All right, so now the garlic toast, I'm just gonna, or garlic bread. Oh my gosh, look at this. I'm gonna have to get the recipe for the Italian bread out soon, because it was so easy to make. I made it in the combi, and it is absolutely the best bread ever. Look at this. Oh my gosh. This looks so good. Now, if you want to add onions, you can do all that. You can saute them and add them in. It's no problem. But this is just, oh my gosh, perfect basic spaghetti that tastes good, okay? It tastes really good. That I promise you. All right, let's dish some out so I can give it a taste. Look at that. Put a meatball on there. All right. This over. Of course, I've got to put a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Just grate a little bit over. And I'll grab a fork, give it a taste. All right, I'm gonna cut through a meatball. Oh, wow. These meatballs are so tender. I could tell just by cutting through it. They are absolutely fantastic. Totally worth making. Please, please make them. And let's twirl a little spaghetti. All right, here we go. I cannot begin to tell you how exciting it is to be able to make perfectly cooked noodles, a nice sauce just from a couple of cans and a little bit of spices, and make it in under 30 minutes. It is absolutely delicious. I love it. One thing I forgot to add this time, and I usually do, is I put about a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes in my seasoning blend. And I forgot to add it, but you know what? I'm not even missing it. It is absolutely delicious. And then don't forget your garlic bread. Oh my goodness. This is the perfect meal. Just add a salad.